Vanakkam, sir. Good evening. Thank
Good
you
evening.
so much for accepting to be with us in this Expert Talks with Hari show. This is a 60-minute format which has three segments. The first segment is about you, your journey till date, and especially the lessons learned from the journey. Second segment is focused on the theme design thinking, where we touch on all the areas how you have impacted in the companies you have worked. And then the third one is a surprise segment. I'll
Yeah.
explain that when we get there. We'll start with who is Mr. Ranganath. Over to you, sir.
Who the person, Ranganath? Oh, that's a very good question to ask. That is something even I'm trying to find out even now. Who is this person? Yeah, because that's a lot of a finding that we may not find in this journey anyway. But having said that, since you told me to just sort of trace my life, let me do it very briefly.
Okay,
Um
sure, sir.
I was actually born 64 years ago in Bangalore. My family comes from a rural part of Karnataka, very close to Hassan. Although we are Tamilians, but as you know, that there are many Tamilians in Karnataka. And I was born in Bangalore, and I spent the first 6 years of my life there before we shifted to Chennai, or Madras as it was called then, because my grandparents, my mother's parents, were living here. And since schooling, etc., my mother wanted it to be a little better. We moved to Chennai, and my father joined my grandfather in the family business that we were having at that point of time. And strangely, my family was making pumps.
Okay.
So they were the first manufacturers of submersible pumps in India, and the company started in 1956, the year I was born. So when my dad came down, so I started schooling in Chennai. It was a school called Don Bosco Madras, where I did all my schooling till class 11. Uh, Good times those days because it was the early and 60s and early 70s. Life was very different, much more simpler, I would say. Uh, Less inputs, more fun, more outdoors. And then after doing my schooling, I did my pre-university. At that point of time, it was 11 plus 1, not 10 plus 2 as it is today. Pre-university in DG Vaishnav in Arumbakam, which was then the closest to my house, and even that was 5.5 kilometers away. That was 1 year, and then during my childhood days, since we were living in a rural part just outside of Chennai, most weekends were spent one day playing cricket, which would normally be like any other kid would be on Sunday. But Saturdays would be spent in repairing pumps, repairing motors, because there was nothing else. And my grandfather would just drag me in because I was the only kid around. And my brother, of course, was there, but I was more inclined to this. So life was spent repairing these things. And it became repairing clocks, repairing toys. So it was then that was the interest which, and then I started repairing cars and motorcycles. Then I said, okay, this is nice. Let me be a mechanical engineer. Fortunately, I could manage to get a seat in College of Engineering Gindi uh, because the efforts there were much lesser, required was much lesser than trying in IIT. And being a little intrinsically lazy, I said, okay, Gindi should be fine enough. So I got a seat. I joined for 5 years. I did my engineering in College of Engineering Gindi.
Okay.
While I was doing my engineering, I continued doing a bit of work with the family business on weekends. And this work was very strange. It started by the time I was 13 or 14. And I would be sitting. The reason why I started working was that I would drive my father around, even though I was underage. At that point of time, we could drive early. Not now, and I wouldn't recommend anybody to do that now. In a rural area, you had to sort of, and so I would drive my father around for some meetings, and I would sit there and listen to this, start becoming a part of this. So life went on this way, and through engineering, I started working in the design department of the company, and at that point of time, my uncle had started manufacturing boilers. So I was sort of looking at the design. And I remember in the early 70s or mid 70s, when he got me a programmable calculator, we had programmed the mechanical design, etc. So it was good, good time in engineering. When I finished engineering, basically the question is, should I work or should I study more? Like I said, I'm intrinsically a little bit lazy. I said, why work? That's a difficult job. People let me study more. And also the fact that when I was part of these meetings that were going on, I could understand the technical part of it. But whenever a finance person spoke, it was completely Greek and Latin to me. I didn't know what they were speaking and why they were speaking that way. So somehow it struck in my mind that at that point of time, if at all I would have to run my family business, if I don't know what finance is, then I won't get too far. So it was just by circumstances that I said, okay, I'm lazy to work. Let me study more, or let me study finance. And it so happened that I got a seat in XLR at Jamshedpur. That was in the year 1978 when I finished my engineering. And those 2 years were spent learning, or at least pretending to learn finance, to have a good understanding of what it means. So that is how that was my life in terms of education. I won't call it education. I think the reading and learning. Real education started when you started working after all this. Uh, I think I learned much more when I was working than I ever learned when I was at school or college. Uh, 1 year I spent after I finished my management in Aisha Tractors. There was a campus recruitment. I got recruited for two reasons. One, I was an engineer. Two, I had a finance background. And three, I was pretty good with my hands on any what you call combustion engine. So I was pretty good with cars, with motorcycles, and tractor is another form of vehicle. So I think I got the job there. And so what did I do? I joined marketing, which I don't like. Starting life as an engineer and as a design guy, marketing is the last thing that you want. But then it suddenly struck me, if I do something I don't like when I'm young, I don't have to deal with it when I'm older, when I may not have the patience to deal with it. So
Okay.
it was crazy ideas in the head, at that point of time. When you're young, you're hot blooded, and you can take risks. So the risk taking ability is much higher because you have nothing to live for except yourself, because your parents are there, they're taking care of themselves. So what I did was just I had to take care of myself. So I said, okay, this is fine. But 1 year into that job, and I was not very happy.
Okay.
Money was okay. Money was not a problem, but I wasn't happy because I'm at heart intrinsically an engineer. And here I was trying to sell tractors to farmers. It was not too bad, but it was not my cup of tea. So I was wondering, I was sort of restless. And suddenly, this uncle of mine said, look, I have a contact in Saudi Arabia. They are doing a power station out of large diesel engines, and one of the diesel engines broke down, and they are repairing it. Would you be interested in spending time with them? So I said, yeah, looks good. This is exciting. What do I do? I said, I just try to get you a visa. You go there, spend time with them. And I said, do I get paid? No, you'll get a place to stay and food to eat. Is that okay with you? I said, why not? What more do I need? Ultimately, you need a place to stay and food to eat. I said, I chucked my job and went, but I couldn't go directly into Saudi Arabia. So this was a very circuitous route, and I had to go to Iraq first because there was some work they said you handle it there, and that's the first time I ever left the shores of India. And I landed in Iraq in June of 1981 when the war is going on there between Iran and Iraq at some point of time. And then when I land there, it's all everything is closed. It was 1 week of unbelievable experiences where you have to go by road for thousands of kilometers or take a train in the nights. and you have to go with the military. It was something new to me, and I just sort of soaked it in because the learning process started then. When you start meeting people who are different from you, when you are in countries which are totally different from what you are used to, and when you're in places. Okay, I had a little bit of experience because after Chennai, most of my life was spent in Chennai. Then I moved to Jamshedpur for 2 years, and I was in Delhi, with Aisha, for about 7, 8 months. Then I was in Punjab. So that given me a bit of a flavor of what people are.
Okay.
But going into these places and then trying to go down to Saudi Arabia, from there drive down from Baghdad to Mosul to Kuwait, and then try to catch a flight. And I'm all of 24 years old. I have no money with me, just a very bit. And land in Saudi Arabia, try to find my way. Then I found something that I managed to find where I have to go. So the years spent there was perhaps the most stressful as well as the most interesting years of my life, I would say, and perhaps where I learned more, which changed me totally as a human being. There are points in life which are tipping points where you completely, I mean, this it gives you a kick right out of your slot of comfort and perhaps makes you a different kind of human being than you were, provided you keep your eyes and ears open and you're open to these experiences. So going to Saudi Arabia, I was given responsibility for a project which was not going very well. The people were living in dumps, and I was put also in that
Mm,
dump. And said, now you got to handle these
mm,
fellows. And to start life that way was unbelievable because you don't know the language, you have nowhere to go, you don't have money, you're stuck in a. The dump, when I mean, is just like an old container. So my living space was a container, like a shipping container with two windows in a room
good.
and a makeshift bathroom. Of course, we had air conditioners everywhere there because it was hot. Then from there on, I looked at the project. I'd never dealt with the project. So what do I do? But the engineering brain kicks in. So I started and I found that work was not being done because the morale of people was very low. There was no leader there.
Okay.
The leader who was leading them, who was much senior, more senior to me, was not really a part of them. And then it suddenly kicked me, why am I different from anybody else? Just because I have this education. Human beings are human beings. What if I start working along with them with my hands? Because I have no issues working with my hands. So I became an electrical engineer and worked with them and started working as a workman as well as an engineer and their boss. The kind of changes that I saw,
Okay.
first they were very skeptical, very suspicious of this fellow. My beard was black. This fellow who sort of talks, he's
Okay.
from an engineering thing, and he's come from a family which runs a business, and yet he's working with us. And then the skepticism slowly turned into trust. When I started actually cleaning
Okay.
their toilets were so dirty. I said, "How can you live with this? We can't clean toilets. Okay, I'll clean it for you." Actually, work started, and that's when I
Mm,
realized that if you need to create that trust, you should be a part and parcel of the team that there is. And over 6 months, we found that we were able to move that project at such a speed that we started getting other jobs. And these people became the core of my team in Saudi Arabia. We finished that job. When I moved out to another job for this repair of these engines, and I took 6 or 7 of these people who worked with me in that, and they became my companions, and we would live together. One of us would cook for the others, one of us would take care of the rest of the things, and the others would work one day a week. This person would do the cooking and taking care of things. And these projects started coming in, and as a young guy, I started getting projects on my own. So I started taking projects in electrical and putting up power stations, small power stations, putting up what you call substations. And before long, we were doing a number of projects, and I had a whole team of 6, 7 people. I was still 24 years old. It was tough. It was tough. We worked normally from we were up at 5 a.m. We would sleep at about 12 or 1 a.m. 4 hours of sleep, 6 days a week, and every day travel by about 300 kilometers. because it was out in the desert, and we needed to do this job. But then nobody thought of anything else because there's nothing much to do. So, like I said, I had a beard. Everybody else grew a beard because there was no time to shave. So it was a team of bearded people, all of us working out in the desert. And sometimes the temperature out there was 50, 55 degrees. And I remember times when we were doing cross country, cross desert cabling, and the sand would be blowing. It would be so hot that we had to buy. You can't throw water. Water is expensive and water evaporates. So we would buy tankers of diesel, 12, 13,000 liters, and pour it on the sand to stabilize so that we don't have sand in our face and sand in the equipment. So life taught
Oh,
me a lot, and it suddenly taught me that if you trust people, people trust you back, and irrespective of how it is, uh, uh, one of the lessons that I learned is that we need to accept everybody the way they come. You cannot have clones of yourself. You can have a goal which is common, but the way people achieve it may be very, very different. Doesn't matter what caste, color, creed, religion you are. If you work together, you get things done. So that was a revelation, and that I spent there almost 5.5 years from project to project, working on those. And by which time, I don't know how the time is going, so you can keep telling me, Hari, because time can go
yes, yes.
forever if I keep talking. So you just have to remind me that, okay, now stop. By which time, my family business was getting into trouble in India because the third
Okay.
generation fighting each other. We had cousins across various parts of India, and the people who had the controlling interest did not have the brains, and the people who had the brains did not have the controlling interest. And you know how it happens in the third generations that they were fighting. And then I was at that point of time finishing up a project and was handing it over. And I had plans. By that time, I had met. Earlier, I had no plans of getting married. The life I was living was a vagabond's life. And
Mm,
even in
mm,
that 5.5 years in Saudi Arabia, I would work for 2 years and take 6 months off and to roam around the world. Actually, I traveled backpack around the world, but in a little more luxurious circumstances. I said, well, what am I making money for? I have no family. I have no one to depending on me, and let me experience what life is. So it used to be that kind of a life, and so I met my future wife in my younger brother's wedding because he was ready,
mm,
he was getting married, and I had no idea that I would do this. But then we decided that was in '84, but she was still studying doing her masters in the medical college. So I said, fine, I'm not going to be in India till everything. So at that point of time, I was continued in Saudi Arabia doing projects, and we thought both of us would shift to the US because she wanted to do more studies and I wanted to also to study a little more. But the circumstances with the family was such that one of my cousins said, "What we ought to use is your degree. You've had enough of studying. Why don't you come back and have a check what you can do with these companies which are in trouble?" So I came back in '86, got married to my wife, and started working in '86, mid '86 in India with my family business in a company which was sick as hell. I mean, the last nails on the coffin were being put there, and that's the company they handed over to me and said, "Now do what you have to do." Two things that they were depending on. One, I was a little, and I'm still a little crazy. I was a maverick in the way I thought about things, and not because I wanted to, because that was how I was made. That was one issue. The other thing was that I was quite a pig-headed guy, which I still am. Had a certain value system which I would not like to what you call compromise under any circumstances, come what may. So they said, fine, let's see what this guy does, and hand it over to me. And uh, first 3 years was atrocious. It was horrible. It was tough. Coming back at the age of 30, trying to take on a company and just to find out what is going on took me a year and a half or two. Try to centralize everything, try to take control of it, with each person doing his own thing was really, really traumatic. No salaries every month. Once in a while you get money. And I'm newly married. There were no mobile phones, so at times I would spend the night in the office itself trying to do things. So again, we went back to almost 18-hour days. But what happened was yet the same thing that I learned in Saudi Arabia: matter of trust, and matter of working along with people, not putting yourself in any way different from the others, made a huge issue in terms of made a difference, not an issue in terms of that. And I found soon a very young batch of core team who really swore by whatever we did. And by the time we were 3 years from the time I took over, we had actually sorted out most of the issues and started growing the company. And over the next 2 years, we grew the company. And we said, okay, if it has to go further, I don't want to get into the stories of that. That itself will take a day. And we said that, okay, now if we need to grow this further, we need to get some investment in it. And we were just, I had made some money in Saudi Arabia, which I had put in here, and I also put in some other places. And because it's a sick company, everything gets sucked in. So we said, okay, let's get somebody. And we found that we were working for a larger company, working for instance, making things for them. And they said, okay, we will put money in. And this is a large group from Bombay which did that. And so we sold most of the company except some of our shares, three, four of us, we kept our shares. We ended it up. I continued to run that for a short while, but then they appointed somebody as the chairman whom I couldn't get along with. So whenever I can't get along, that's what happened first in my first business with what you call Aisha. When your value system is at variance with the value system of your boss or the company, then either you have to shut your mouth and suffer what you're doing, or you get out of the place if you have the option. I've always chosen the get out of the place option. I could at that point. So I decided in 1992, 86 I came, 92 I decided that let me get out, because there was my cousin running what my father and grandfather had run, which I'd never been a part of. They were also making, it was a small scale industry, they were also making pumps as well as boilers. So I joined my cousin there and offered to the people who bought out the previous company, saying that, look, let's not compete, we are doing similar products, let's work together. But they said, no, no, you can go ahead and compete. And my cousin and I are built a little differently from what, like, he's very similar to me. So we managed actually to build the company. And the sad thing about building this company, we competed with the previous company that I was in, which was also what we sold, and that company sank. And I lost all my money to it. It
Wow.
was, yeah, because I had not taken the money out, and I offered them, but they couldn't run it, they couldn't compete, it's all gone. And then
Ah.
this other new company which my father was running, we started developing it. We, from a small scale industry which was not doing much, we developed into a fairly decent size for that. We also brought in some private equity,
Hmm.
and we were supposed to go public when the Harshad Mehta scandal hit.
Hawala. Okay.
Yeah, so we had borrowed thinking that we would do well and we would pay back the borrowing from the private equity. And then we could not go public, and that was a mess. And when the scandal hit, the capital markets just sank, and boilers are capital markets. So story starts all the way again. A lot of tough times, but we were used to the tough times. We knew what we had to do, so we were very, very quick. We downsized quickly. We sorted out many things. We told others that, okay, we can't pay you now, but you have to work along with us for the next 5 or 10 years to get your money back. Since they knew us from the previous company, the SIG company where I had worked, and
Yeah.
there were maybe 150 court cases, and about 140 of them withdrew the court cases after I spoke to them and showed them what my plan was. And 10 people who went to court never got their money, but the other 140 got their money. Because we paid them back over a period of time. We said, look, I need to survive for you to survive. Otherwise, I can just wash my hands off and go. At the most, my personal guarantees will go. And I told them that even if you take the last shirt off my back, it won't be enough to give you. So let's learn to survive. And there was a little trust built by then. The market, I understand, knew me as a crazy, mad fellow who will not take any bribes, who will not give any bribes, but who can be trusted to move things. So that was a good Whether true or false, it was a good image to have. So you work on that image to keep things moving. So when I moved to the next one, it worked. Somehow we managed to keep it going, and so we had to downsize. So when we decided to downsize, we were four of us. So we said, okay, two can go. They were older, so the two left. They said, anyways, it's a retirement age and they can do whatever they have to. My cousin and I continued, and we decided that whoever would get something else to do first would move, and the other one will run the company.
So
Although I
one
would, that,
question here.
yeah,
So one question, sorry. Whenever you're faced with a hurdle, you
yeah.
overcame it. But what goes in your mind when when hurdle comes, and then
It's
you've overcome, and the journey is on. But then, what kind of mental frame you are in to face it? I mean, this is just for
it,
new entrepreneurs or people who are in the industry to understand, sir.
look, you must be made of very, very stern stuff, and you must be. It's very traumatic. Let me tell you. Two of my colleagues lost their mind.
Hmm.
Lost their mind. They are still in medication. It's you have to be made of stern stuff, and you need to take help of people. If you are going to bottle everything yourself, then you'll be in trouble. You need to have people to have a sounding board. You need to get your things out. And the main thing is that you learn to meditate. Doesn't matter who you are. Keep your mind calm, because that's only that. I was an agnostic who did not even go to temples. I said the work is worship, and that was what I was taught. Respect human beings because they're human beings, not because of caste, creed, color. Do your good job, work is worship, and don't cheat anybody. So that was my religion. But I learned to meditate
Hmm.
because my
Hmm.
wife said, look, you need this. I started getting high blood pressure. I got ulcerative colitis. It was autoimmune disease. I got all kinds of stuff. But learning pranayama, learning this pulled me out, and then I started using a scenario. What is the worst that can happen to a human being? And that was decided when you were born. You can die. When you're born, you know you're dying. So what's the worst? Any scenario you build on that is good. So I said, fine, let's face it. Let's not run away from things, because the moment you start running away, it builds. But the moment you start become offensive about your defense, okay. For instance, let me give you one example. During this
Hmm.
really tough days of the first company I was handling, which was my uncle's,
Hmm.
which was so much the money we owed so much money and we were giving. My wife got a call, said we're going to murder your husband. That's true. They
Hmm.
actually murdered at that point of time the next factory's what you call the same union murdered the next
Hmm.
factory's personnel manager.
Hmm.
So my wife is also made of stern stuff. If you
Hmm.
want to murder him, talk to him, go behind him. Why are you talking to me? And she banged the phone down. And she said, "This is what." I said, "That's fine. Let's talk to the guys. Who's this guy?" No, he didn't leave his number. I said, "They'll call again." So it was only then what you call landlines. They
Ah,
called.
okay.
Because there was no mobile, no. So they called on the
Hmm.
landline. I said, "Where and when do you want to murder me?"
Hmm.
But please understand, I'm a guy. If you take my one hand, I will take your two. If you take my one eye, I will take yours and somebody else's eyes also. I have nothing to
Yeah.
lose. Do you understand?
Yeah.
I'm in a situation. I have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You can't do anything to me. My back is against the wall. So
Hmm.
either we work together
Hmm.
and see what we can do. So you need to
Hmm.
be made of very stern stuff, or else you can lose it. I don't know. If I look back, I can laugh, but when you're going through that, by God,
It's
it's every day for not for 1 year, for 4 or 5 years. But to give you an idea of what I felt like, in when we were young, we used to have footballs with a orange color bladder. I don't know if you
hmm.
young guys
Hmm.
have seen.
Hmm.
And that bladder would be put in, and we would pump, and we would
Correct.
tie that thing. So if you
Hmm.
take the bladder, I felt there were 20 holes and had 10 fingers on which I can sort of stop the air. So I used the 10 fingers to stop the biggest leak and keep. That's a feeling I had. We blowing.
I know.
It was traumatic. But one thing I said, that there's no way that I will lose my value system. I will
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
budge from the values that I stood for, which is integrity, honesty. and being transparent. Irrespective of the pressure, I said, let me be this way. And we lost a lot of orders, we made some enemies, but irrespective of people not liking you, the respect for you started going up. And they felt that, okay, we can talk to this guy if it's logical. So that is how it started. So these ups and downs go on, and even now, and I mean, everybody has ups and downs. So when something goes down or something goes up, I only tell one thing. My normal prayer, I never used to pray, but then later on I learned how to pray. My prayer is, God give me the power to look at everything with equanimity. No flying high when something goes well, and no flying low when something does not go well. I mean, these are things, transactions that come and go. You are you. Keep yourself up. Yes, you will find a lot of trauma. Learn to deal with it. And at some point of time, everything passes. You suddenly see the things, you see the sunrise, but you have to live to that day. And that's what is important to, so to understand, to prioritize what you need to
How,
prioritize. Yeah, go ahead.
sir, when it comes to about design thinking, how did you come up with this Grundfos, especially in the design thinking part? Because now it's a buzzword and people are talking about it, but coming up with the concept and then the way you have
Yeah.
done what you have done, how does how did it start?
So, okay, let me put it this way. When we decided that one of us should get a job, I had a Grundfos pump in my house in the 60s. Because my grandfather, when he started, he had brought one from abroad. And we were, as a family, trying to get Grundfos into India, but that never happened. I went there in 94 too, it never happened. But in 96 or 97, they came,
Hmm.
trying to come to India. In 97, see how things happen. See, if we think we are in control, we are not. I mean, something drives us to, you can call it destiny, you can call it whatever you want. So when Grundfos came here, they advertised, they wanted to set up a company, they advertised for a person. In economic times, I had not seen the advertisement. I had not even seen, because I was not looking for a job, although because I was part of it. One of my friends saw it, spoke to the headhunter, and said, "Talk to this guy because he knows pumps. He's been abroad. He seems to be a good fit." And that's how the headhunter spoke to me. And I started, and I did not apply. Then he came and spoke to me. He told me, "Look, at least you know what your market worth is. You're going to compete with the best professionals. Why don't you make an application? And your final two interviews, one will be in Dubai, one will be in Denmark. If you haven't seen those places, it's a good time to see." I said, I was intrigued. I said, why not? Let me see what my market worth. And I made an application. There were 410 applications, I understand. Later on, I came to know. And they slowly sifted it out, last 32, last 16, last 8, last 4, last 2, and I was there.
Wow. Okay.
So when I got the job was not because I was better than anybody else. Everybody had the same, perhaps were even better than hand pump companies too. But nobody had a holistic approach to the business. And no, I understand this is, I find it difficult to believe, but they did a lot of psychometric tests, and they understand the feeling of comfort that they got, the trust quotient, that handing over millions of dollars to a person and believing that that I would take care of. They got it from me, and they said we would rather have you, all things being equal, and that's how I got the job. Again, it is very very strong values, because I knew the values of Grundfos, and that matched entirely with my values. So what we did when we I said when we spoke to the boss of the company, the owner, so what do you want Grundfos to be? He says, I want it to be a significant company and known as a responsible company. I said, perfect. This is exactly what I was thinking. We don't want to be the biggest company in India, but we want to be the most respected, responsible company in India. So entire thing started with writing down the value system and saying that anything that we do, we behave to ensure that we live our values. It's not easy to bring everybody to that platform, and you constantly are hiring people, but you still have to talk to everybody. And the larger you become, the more difficult it is to talk to the person right at the field level if you're sitting at the top. But we had to do it, and this is how we build. We build teams not around processes. We built teams not around work. We built the work around good people. So we hired the person and built the work around him or her. And we said, you use the best that you can do. We hired people who had the right attitude and aptitude. I didn't care about what they studied, what they did. If my only way of looking at people, and that is something that we've been following, is if you talk to somebody for about 10 minutes, you know what they stand for. And if
Correct.
they are putting themselves before their company, if they're putting themselves before their team, I would quietly say, no, I don't want this person. Because in today's world, what we're looking for is team players. As a leader, you put yourself behind. You give all the credit and you take all the brickbats. And that is
Mhm.
something that you need to do as a leader. If you don't, then you're not going to have a great team. In the past, people got work done by fear. Oh, I will get castigated. But this is not the age of fear. And fear can't take you too long. Oh, you can fear God. How long you want to fear God? You have to actually enthuse people to say, this is my self-esteem. I need to do this because I feel good about it. I need to do something better today than I did yesterday, not because somebody else did it better than me. So we started developing this culture, a culture of openness. No differentiation between the managing director and the sweeper, except in hierarchy that is only for running the company. The food, the kind of treatment you get, everything remains the same. Your
Okay.
access to what you want remains the same. Yeah. Yeah,
Sir,
go. Your
with this COVID situation now, how do you see this? I mean, generally, at least in Tamil Nadu or in national level, how do you see the situation and the way forward, sir?
see. This is a situation which nobody can control. You can do your best. Everybody's taking pot shots in the air, and we must accept that. Something might work. We hope it works. It will.
Correct.
Till then, we have to survive. There will be collateral damage. There will be collateral damage. But as a society, how much can we lessen the damage is all that we can do. How much can we help each other? There is a limitation to everything. You cannot do everything. You cannot be everything to everybody. But if you can manage to sort of look at what is around us, at least be influential in the sphere of influence around you.
Correct.
Your sphere of influence may be 10 feet radius, maybe 20 feet radius, 100 feet or 2 miles or 2 kilometers or 100 kilometers. If you are able to make that difference in and around and talk to people and be a sounding board and try to say, okay, this is it. Somebody can survive, somebody may not be able to survive. Can you help them? Businesses that can't survive will go down. And there's no point in putting good money behind bad money
Okay.
because some things will not exist. Now, the question is that can we use these people to discover something new, to change them,
Correct.
to kill them? Because a person's skill does not disappear. See, the greatest skill a person can have, I'm talking to all the people who are listening, I don't know how many are listening on this, is
Hmm.
the ability to look at very different things, experience very different things, and synthesize this whole thing to a very, very new thing, new initiative. When you can put all this together, it's a very holistic approach. One thing I can tell you. Let's see, you go to a nice what you call hotel, and if you're a member, somebody comes up, oh, Mr. Hari Balaji, how are you doing? Welcome, sir, so and so. Now, this is something that goes into Hari Balaji.
Hmm.
If he goes into then he walks into a, let us say, a washing machine showroom. If the guy doesn't address you by your name and say, welcome, sir, you'll be wondering, what's gone wrong? Why is he not doing? Although it is not their, what you call, way of doing
Yes,
things. But suppose he does, look at the
that-
impact that it creates on you. Wow, these guys are really good. So we are now, as mammals and human beings, we are soaking in experiences and we are using these standards elsewhere. So if somebody can synthesize all this and come out with standards, and that's where I believe human beings are capable of doing this, so we need to do this a little different. And once we start doing this and be honest in our communication, you will see that things are changing, and that's what happened in Grundfos. Transparency and honesty in communication. If you can't do something, say you can't do it. If you goofed up, accept that you goofed up. Don't try to cover it up. At the same time, if the customer goofs up, don't say, sorry, you are goofed up, but I will take care of it. No, sorry, you are goofed up, you pay for it. So a no that is said should be a very, very informed, logical no and not egoistic no. And if we accept what we have made wrong, we have to sort of understand that we went wrong. So the entire ethos is to allow people to make mistakes, but tell them you cannot repeat a mistake.
learn from it and okay.
Yeah, because you have to learn from mistake. I mean, that's the best teacher. All the lessons that I have learned in running sick businesses, I have used in Grundfos because I can never ever forget that even it was 30 years ago. All the good things you forget.
Thank you, sir. We move on to the next segment. First and second is over. The third segment is the surprise segment where uh, you finish your work, you go back to your house, you have your dinner, you sleep, and next day morning you get up as CM of Tamil Nadu. So, what are the three sectors would you focus? What would be your interventions, sir?
First thing,
Mm,
first thing, I will remove this throwing of power at people, at poor people. I mean,
mm,
people can't go into any government office to get things done. First thing is that no bribing. It is
mm,
very difficult not to see.
mm,
And the government should be a service provider,
mm.
not an auditor or a policeman. That's the first thing I would change.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
Two,
Mm,
two. There should be to me only one law. There
mm.
cannot be different laws for different people, and
Okay,
it means yeah, and the higher you are, if I'm a minister, that law doesn't apply to me. Sorry, it applies to me first. I follow it first. It's important, and that's exactly what we've done in creating a thing. That is very
mm,
vital.
mm,
Three,
mm,
put all my money into primary and secondary education instead of starting reserving things when
mm.
people are already gone and not able to cope. Then I reserve something, then it doesn't work, then people get frustrated. But get them all the underprivileged society, whether it be underprivileged in caste, underprivileged in money, or not having access to good things, make sure primary education is given free and at the best level, so that by the time they come to their secondary schools, they already have a solid foundation.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can't try to build edifices on weak foundations. We have to build the foundation first. This is what I
Thank
would
you,
do.
sir. Thank you. Thank you. Three main areas you have touched. The next one is you're given a time machine where you're allowed to go back to whichever year you want and spend a couple of weeks with your favorite leader and come back and publish a book. Who would
I
be the
need,
leader?
I need to use a time machine to really go behind at least 10, 15 leaders. In that 2 weeks, if I can go. So, learning is a continuous process, and I learn from everybody I meet, even today. It
Mm,
could be a person on the road. It could be the person who's sweeping my room in my office. It's a continuous
yes.
process of learning. You,
Okay.
it is said you cannot not be an example, and more often it's not what you say, it's what you do and don't do that sets the example. As a father or a mother, your children are not listening to what you're saying; they're watching what you're doing, and they will follow that. So it's the same thing in life. So I need to go behind many leaders. I mean, there are bits and pieces of every leader I would like to pick up.
Okay.
It,
Okay.
it, 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 in terms of pig-headedness, Mahatma Gandhi is one. In terms of the
Okay.
way values, the way he went about Abraham Lincoln is one. So I would sort of quickly visit a lot of people and come back.
Okay. 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 Good. Now, the third question is you're going to magical one. So with one swish, if you can change one thing globally, that will change right away, even before this show finishes. What would you change?
That is something I pray every day. You know, the Sanskrit this thing, Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Let every sentient being and non-sentient being live in harmony and not create all these differences of caste, creed, religion, this and that. And get. I mean, after all, when you were born, you don't know what your religion is. You don't have biases as a child, as a baby. You start getting everything in. And I heard a very nice thing watching a Malayalam film. I don't understand Malayalam. I saw the
Mm,
subtitles.
mm,
Recently, I watched one because I like the films because they don't have songs, they don't have fights, they have a nice story and they go. But it's a Sufi guy who says when you're asleep, there's your breath, there's your consciousness,
mm.
and there is God, but you don't know if it is your God or somebody else's God. This is the only thing for everybody who sleeps. So one magic wand, that's it. All we respect each
Wonderful.
other, we live in harmony with each other and with the
Okay.
animals, with all sentient beings, and make sure that this humankind survives because everybody says the world will die or the earth will die. Stupidity. Human beings and animals will die. The earth will continue to live because it will be a barren earth.
Thank you, sir. Now we move on to the gratitude segment, where there'll be definitely thousands of people, but if you could mention few names, key milestones in your life, people who have supported you, mentored you, guided you, who you owe your success to. You can name them and pay your gratitude to them.
I would say I would name all mentors and guides who showed me what to do and showed me what to not to do by watching them. They had serious impact on what I should do or I should not. My parents, without doubt,
Okay.
my grandparents, my mother's. I never met my father's parents because they died when my father was 10 years old.
Hmm.
My mother's parents, and perhaps the greatest impact I've had is my mother's father, because being the oldest grandson, I lived a lot with him, and my all my engineering skills came out of him, all my value systems came out of him. So that is one. And when I look at work, there are a lot of people. I can't say there is any specific leader outside that I came across many people who impacted me. But I would like to say thanks to the person who was there with me in Saudi Arabia, a person called Rajan, and I used to be a hot-blooded guy who would sort of speak my mind very clearly. And he sat me down and said, "Cool down. Nothing wrong in what you're saying, but our Tamil lo sonnaru because he's a
Hmm.
Tamilian. டேய் ஏன்டா கத்தி எடுத்து எல்லாரையும் குத்துற வாழைப்பழத்துல ஊசி ஏத்துறாம ஒரு அதே எஃபெக்ட் தான் இருக்கும் நீ சொல்றது கரெக்ட் தான் அம்மா நீ கத்தி எடுத்து குத்துனா அவங்க கத்தி எடுத்து குத்துவாங்க நீ ஊசி போட்டான்னு அது கரெக்டா ஏறும் மருந்து மாதிரி ஏறும் ஸோ I can never forget that conversation I had with him. I said, fine. And then one more person in life who I came across who taught me that basically uh, we are no one. We are just a small speck in this universe. We
Hmm.
are stupid if we think we are in control. We are there at the right time, at the right place, and our business is to do the right work. And the hallmark of a good leader is to do the right thing when nobody is watching.
Hmm. Integrity.
So these are the people I really remember. So wow, and these are things that I can't forget. There are others who helped in life, when I was really in trouble, and I also have to accept whatever God you believe in. I owe a lot because whenever there was great trouble, came a solution out of the blue. You just think about the solution, you calmly sit down and say, okay, what do I do? And within a few hours, your mind starts thinking, okay, this is a solution that is possible. So that has helped me even now because I'm able to think positively. I say, okay, this is what it is. This is the new normal. I can't do anything about it. Why waste my time in something that I can't do anything about? Now, what can I do with this situation? Can I do something better to come out of it? So I would say if we have to train ourselves to fall on our four legs like cats, whichever way you're thrown. So you land on your feet and say, okay, we will live another day. I don't know if you need 9 lives or 10 lives or 100 lives, but that's the way it is.
Okay. Sir, what is your definition of success?
Every person has a different definition of success. To me, uh, to
Hmm.
me, it was very simple. The impact that I leave when I'm not there, what the people think of me
Hmm.
when I'm not there is my measure of success. Not what I've
Hmm.
earned or what I've done. Just
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
measure.
Hmm.
If they say, so my measure of success for Grundfos was I retired in April. For 2 years, I worked with my team. I said, if you guys slip up even a little bit, it means I have failed. The company has
Hmm.
to do better after I leave.
Hmm.
I'm in this COVID times, they're doing wonderfully well. They hardly need my help. They once in a while they just say this is what we're doing, but they're doing wonderfully well. And my ex-boss, who's currently the boss, he called me and said, I've never seen such a smooth succession plan ever in my life in any of the companies that we have. So that's a measure of
Thank
success.
you, sir.
Yeah.
So, if you consider your life as a book, there are, of course, many more chapters to go, many more lives to be impacted. But so far, the chapters you have finished, if you sum it up, what is one thing as a topmost learning of your life?
Don't take yourself very seriously. Take what you do seriously.
எல்லாமே பஞ்ச்லைன்ல கொடுத்தா எப்படி சார்?
No, I'm
No, no,
seriously
no,
telling you that.
no, no, it's good.
Every, every time I get myself into this. In fact,
Excellent.
I'm mentoring a person now. I told the lady, the lady manager, have the ability to sit and watch yourself as a third person. You are in it, but you're out of it. You watch. And then what you need is to have an equanimous third person, hands off kind of thing. Don't bring your biases into anything that you do. So, and if you don't bring the biases, then you'll be able to hear what the other person is saying. So another person I have to say thanks to was my communications teacher in XLRI, an American
Mm,
padri called Father Tom, where he said,
mm,
Ranga, listen more than you
mm.
open your mouth. Listen. Listening is not reacting. Just shut your mouth, keep quiet, get everything in before you even start formulating your process. And then
Awesome.
you understand, if you don't, ask the person again if you understood right, and then you formulate. Because most of us, by the time the person has started the first sentence, are formulating our reply already. Even now I do, but then the person watching me says, "Hey, stop, hold."
நிறைய விஷயம் இருக்கு சார். லைக் யூ ஆர் சேயிங் இட் இன் சச் அ சிம்பிள் மேனர், பட் தென் எல்லாமே டெப்த் அதிகமா இருக்கிற விஷயங்க. த வே யூ எக்ஸ்பிளைன் இட், இட்ஸ் வெரி சிம்பிள் அண்ட் பீப்புள் குட் ரிலேட். வி ஹேவ் ஒன் கொஸ்டின் ஃப்ரம் அ வியூவர் சார். வாட் வில் பி த நியூ நார்மல் லைக்? ஃப்ரம் மிஸ்ஸஸ் பத்மா அமர்நாத் நாயுடு.
Padma, as they say, I have not said it. Change is the only constant. The new normal will be continuously changing datum, continuously changing goalposts. If you're able to accept changes and think on the fly and change on the fly, you have a comfortable life. If you're cowed down by changes, you're going to be in trouble. So the faster we accept changes, the better it is. So this is what is new normal. Can anybody tell which direction COVID is going to go now in current day? We can't. Can anybody tell which way the world is going to go now? We can't. Basically, earlier we could, but now no. Not even Europe, not even the US. So
Correct.
it's a, as they say, somebody coined it, a VUCA world: volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that's the normal world. So I'm saying, okay, bring on the change. Pray to the God that you are there to give you that strength. Bring on whatever change. இனி என்ன வேணா போடுறா கடவுள் பாத்துக்கிறேன் நான்.
என்ன பவுன்சர் போட்டு அடி சிக்ஸ் அடிக்கிறேன்.
That's only when you put the attitude.
தேங்க்யூ. தேங்க்யூ.
Important.
Thank you so much, sir. உங்ககிட்ட I requested for 60 minutes. We have come to last 5 minutes இன்னும் இருக்கு. We have covered என்னென்ன நான் லிஸ்ட்ல வச்சிருந்தனோ எல்லாத்தையும் நீங்க you have touched, and the way you explained was really interesting. அந்த அப்ரோச் ரொம்ப ஈஸியா இருந்தது சார். லைக் டு எனி லெவல் டு அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட், அண்ட் அதுவும் எல்லாமே டீப்பா இருக்கிறது. ஜிட்டு கிருஷ்ணமூர்த்தில இருந்து ரெஃபரன்ஸ் எடுக்கிறீங்க, அப்புறம் உங்க இங்கிலீஷ் டீச்சர்ல இருந்து ரெஃபரன்ஸ் எடுக்கிறீங்க. ஸோ ரொம்ப it was very nice to listen to how you explain. அதுவும் இப்போ அங்க சவுதியில அவர் சொன்ன எக்ஸாம்பிள் எல்லாம் பாத்தீங்கன்னா, பூ பறிக்க கோடரி எது இருக்குன்றதெல்லாம் ஊசி ஏத்து எதுக்கு கத்தி எடுக்கிறேன்றீங்க. ஸோ நல்லா இருந்தது சார். ரொம்ப சந்தோஷம். உங்க 60 மினிட்ஸ் நீங்க வந்து பல ஏரியாஸை டச் பண்ணுங்க. அதர் எனி ஏரியாஸ் would you like to touch upon which you have left, sir?
No,
Any
really, there
closing
are so
remarks?
many stories which turn, like I said, turn your life. And one thing, I used to be, as a young person, quite an obnoxious guy. Basically, with the philosophy that you're guilty until proven not. So
Oh,
I had very little patience for people who didn't have brains, people who were telling lies, people who were telling. I was 180 degrees opposite after my stint at Saudi Arabia, saying, who am I to judge people? People come the way they are.
mm,
This is my way, that somebody else is some other way. I just have to accept it and go and do what I have to do. So now change to you're okay unless you're proven guilty. So you're not guilty. And then everybody is the child of the same God. Doesn't matter which God you pray. You cannot have multiple gods. Imagine what kind of politics would be there in heaven or wherever they are if there are multiple people. India இருந்தாலே இந்தியால politics. மூணு பேர் இருந்தா கொலை. அங்க அப்புறம் எப்படி இருக்கும்? அதனால so it doesn't matter what you believe, who you believe, go ahead. But make sure humanity is something that you keep in mind. Yes, we all have our biases, Varun, but the ability, like I said, to sit out and watch yourself will give you a little thing in your head. Hey, cool it. So, like I said, it says, don't take myself me seriously. Don't take myself too seriously. Just take what you do seriously. Understand ஒழுங்கா பண்ணிடணும். To the best of your conscience, not to the best of somebody's requirement.
தேங்க்யூ சார். உங்க நல்ல எண்ணங்கள்லாம் நிறைவேற வாழ்த்துக்கள். ரொம்ப நன்றி சார். தேங்க்யூ.
Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you, although I couldn't see who was there or who was not there. But it's good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. So I just sort of sign off here, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That was Mr. Ranganath N. Ambassador of Grundfos Pumps India Private Limited. I've seen him in few seminars and conferences, and I've seen him behind the podium addressing large gatherings. And in few occasions, I've had chance to speak to him, and I'm very thankful that he consented to be with us in this show and share his knowledge. அவர் பேசுனதே உங்களுக்கு தெரிஞ்சிருக்கும். அவருடைய பேக்ரவுண்ட் எல்லாமே ஒரு ஹியூமர் கலந்து சொல்லுவார். பட் சொல்ற விஷயம் எல்லாமே ஆழமான கருத்துக்கள், ரொம்ப சாதாரணமாக சொல்லுவார், எல்லாருக்கும் புரியுற வகையில். அது அவருடைய ஸ்பெஷாலிட்டி. ஐம் ஹாப்பி தட் அதே ஸ்டைலில் இன்னைக்கு ஒரு 1 hour நம்ம கூட டைம் ஸ்பெண்ட் பண்ணாரு. ஐம் ஆல்வேஸ் தேங்க்ஃபுல் டு பீப்புள் ஹூ அப்ரிஷியேட் இந்த ஒரு பிளாட்ஃபார்மில் வந்து மற்றவங்களுக்கு அவங்க நாலேஜை ஷேர் பண்ணணும்னு வரவங்க உண்மையிலே வந்து பாராட்டுக்குரியவர்கள். அதே மாதிரி உங்கள் சப்போர்ட் கொடுத்துக்கிட்டு இருக்கீங்க. ரொம்ப நன்றி.